It was 8:12 a.m., the kind of peaceful, bright morning where nothing should go wrong, when I heard pounding on my front door so violent it rattled the frame. At first, I thought it was a delivery driver having a bad day, but everything changed when a voice screamed, "Open this door! This is a 911 emergency!" My hand froze on the doorknob. An emergency? At my house? I cracked the door open just 2 inches, just enough to look outside, and my stomach dropped. Karen. HOA Karen. Standing on my porch like she owned the entire neighborhood, sweat on her forehead, phone in hand, waving it around as if she were directing traffic. Behind her were 2 paramedics and a fire truck parked crooked across the street. "I reported a man unconscious inside. He's not responding. You need to break the door." The paramedics stared at her in confusion. I stared at her in disbelief. And then she made direct eye contact with me through the crack in the door, her face drained of color. "You're awake?" she stammered. I pushed the door open a little wider. "Very awake. Why are you calling 911 on my house?" She blinked rapidly, scrambling for an excuse. I thought I heard someone collapse. I was just trying to help. This house is under HOA observation, you know." Behind her, a crowd of neighbors had already begun gathering, whispering. One of the paramedics stepped forward. "Sir, are you injured? Is there anyone else inside?" "Nope," I said calmly. "Just me, and I'm perfectly fine." Then Karen exploded. "He's lying! He's hiding something! You need to search his house!" The neighborhood fell silent. The paramedics exchanged a look. And that's when things escalated fast. A police cruiser rolled up, lights flashing. 2 officers stepped out, walking straight toward us. Karen practically sprinted to them. "Good! Finally! Arrest him for obstruction! He's refusing entry!" The officers looked at me. I took a slow breath, because Karen had no idea, no clue who I really was. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the badge. Her jaw hit the floor. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "you just placed a false 911 report on an off-duty police officer." Her world collapsed in silence. Karen froze the moment she saw the badge, like her brain short-circuited and her soul left her body for a quick vacation. The neighbors gasped, the officers stiffened, and the paramedics suddenly found the morning a lot more interesting. You're a cop?" she whispered, voice cracking. "Off duty, but yes. And you just triggered an emergency response team over nothing." One of the officers stepped beside me. "Ma'am, we need to understand why you called 911. What exactly did you hear?" Karen's eyes darted everywhere. The sidewalk, the fire truck, a bird flying overhead, anywhere except my face. It was a thud, a very loud thud," she insisted. "I thought he collapsed, and as HOA vice president, it is my duty to ensure the safety of—" I cut her off gently. "Karen, I was in the shower. The only thud was the shampoo bottle." A wave of laughter rippled through the watching neighbors. Karen's face twisted. "This is harassment. You're all harassing me." The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, we still need to confirm your claim. A false emergency call is a serious offense." That was my cue. "Actually, officers," I said, pulling out my phone, "there's something you should both see." Karen's head snapped toward me. No, we don't need to." But it was too late. I opened the porch security cam footage. The video was clear. Karen pacing in front of my house at 7:58 a.m. Karen testing the doorknob. Karen leaning her shoulder against the door, trying to push it open. Karen stepping back, pulling out her phone and dialing 911 with theatrical distress. Karen falling onto her knees in fake panic as the fire truck approached. The officers watched in total silence. A neighbor muttered, "Oscar-worthy performance." Karen's face turned cherry red. That is completely out of context. I was checking the door because I thought he fainted inside." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, we still need to confirm your claim. A false emergency call is a serious offense." Karen shifted into full meltdown mode. "He's lying. He tampered with the footage. This neighborhood is unsafe. I'm the victim here." One of the officers turned to me. "Sir, do you want to file a report?" Before I could answer, Karen lunged forward and pointed a shaking finger in my face. "You listen to me. This community has rules, and you don't get to ignore me just because you flash a badge." I met her eyes calmly. "Karen, you just tried to illegally enter my home, and now you're screaming at a police officer." Her mouth snapped shut. The crowd stared. Karen stood frozen, eyes wide, breathing sharp and shaky as the officer's words hung in the morning air. It was the first time in her HOA career that she realized she wasn't the predator in this neighborhood. She was the prey. But in classic Karen fashion, survival mode kicked in. No, you can't arrest me. I'm the HOA vice president," she shrieked. "This neighborhood depends on me." "That's not how this works. We're not arresting you, yet, but we are investigating a false emergency report." Karen's panic turned to rage. "Well, if you're going to investigate," she snapped, throwing air quotes, "then you should know something. He is a threat. He slammed the door on me before. He's been hostile for weeks." I crossed my arms. "Karen, I've never even spoken to you before today." She blinked, realizing she had no idea what to say next. So she resorted to the only superpower Karen truly possessed: causing public chaos. She stormed toward the crowd of neighbors forming on the sidewalk. "All of you, tell the police how he's been breaking HOA rules, how he's been endangering the community." Everyone stared at her like she had grown a second head. Finally, Mrs. Bradshaw, the elderly neighbor who had known me since I moved in, stepped forward. "Karen, sweetheart, the only danger here is you. You're the one who pounds on doors at sunrise." A few neighbors snickered. Karen spun around, horrified. "What? That is a lie." Another neighbor added, "I've seen your golf cart parked outside people's houses at 6 a.m. You take pictures through their windows. It's creepy." A ripple of murmurs spread through the group. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a malfunctioning robot. "You're all against me, all of you. You think he's innocent? You think he's the victim?" The officer rubbed his forehead. "Ma'am, please calm down." But Karen was far beyond calm. She pointed both hands at me like I was the final boss of her HOA existence. "He's new. He doesn't respect the rules. He thinks he's above the HOA. He even mocked me yesterday." I lifted a brow. Yesterday, I was on night shift. I wasn't even home. The crowd erupted in laughter. Karen looked like she might combust. Her voice cracked with desperation. This is a hostile community, and if you officers don't discipline him, I will." That did it. The officer's expression hardened. "Ma'am, that sounds a lot like a threat." Karen paled. For the first time, I watched her actually step back in fear, realizing she had trapped herself with her own mouth. Karen's retreat was small, just a single step backward, but everyone saw it. The officers, the neighbors, me. She knew she'd crossed a line. But Karen was the type who would rather dig a deeper hole than admit she was already buried. I didn't mean it as a threat," she muttered, voice trembling yet angry. "I just meant that the HOA will We'll take action." One of the officers raised an eyebrow. What action, exactly? More unauthorized entry attempts? More false reports? Karen's nostrils flared like a bull in slow motion. "The HOA has rights." I shook my head. No HOA has the right to break into a resident's home. Karen opened her mouth to argue, but the universe betrayed her. My phone buzzed. The notification popped up on the lock screen. Porch camera, motion detected, 7:43 a.m. Karen saw it. Her eyes widened in horror. I tapped it. The officers leaned in. The neighbors leaned in. Karen took another step back. The recording showed her earlier that morning, sneaking up my driveway, holding a measuring tape, pressing her ear against my door, peeking into the side window, and worst of all, writing something on a clipboard labeled HOA Emergency Access Form Draft. The crowd gasped in unison. Mrs. Bradshaw slapped her forehead. "Oh, Karen, not again." Karen screeched, "That is not a real form. I mean, it is, but I wasn't. You're all missing the point." One of the officers crossed his arms. "Ma'am, this is textbook harassment and trespassing." Karen stomped the ground like a toddler denied candy. "This neighborhood is out of control. I'm trying to keep standards high while you all ruin everything." Another neighbor chimed in. "Karen, you fined me for having the wrong kind of grass." Someone else added, "You ticketed my kid for drawing chalk art on the driveway." A third neighbor said, "You ticketed my mailbox for being too cheerful. What does that even mean?" The group murmured louder and louder until Karen snapped. She pointed at me again. "This is all your fault. Ever since you moved in, everything has fallen apart." I squared my shoulders. "Karen, I moved in 3 days ago." The crowd burst out laughing. Karen looked genuinely dizzy, like her brain was buffering and couldn't reconnect. The officer took a slow step toward her. "Ma'am, after reviewing the footage and your behavior, we need you to stay right here. We're going to have to contact your HOA board." Karen's jaw unhinged. "No, no, no, no. You can't talk to them. They cannot know about this." I smirked. "Karen, they're already watching." Every head turned, because walking down the street, clipboards in hand, were 3 HOA board members looking very, very angry. Karen whispered one word under her breath. "No." The HOA board members marched toward us like a firing squad, stepped sharp, eyes locked on Karen. She stiffened, clutching her clipboard like a shield. The board president, Mr. Hawthorne, stopped just inches from her. "Karen, we received multiple complaints this morning, and now we find you in the middle of a police investigation?" he said quietly, which somehow felt worse than yelling. Karen swallowed hard. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was simply performing my duties." The treasurer cut her off. "Your duties do not include breaking into someone's home." "That's not what happened," she shrieked. I tapped my phone screen. The porch cam footage played again, louder this time. Clear, undeniable. Karen's entire morning crime spree looping in crisp HD. Neighbors murmured. Officers folded their arms. HOA board members stared at her in disappointment. Mr. Hawthorne spoke slowly. "Karen, this isn't the first issue we've had with you, but it is the most serious." Her voice cracked. "You don't understand. If we don't keep the neighborhood strict, everything will fall apart. Standards will crumble. Property values will—" The secretary stepped forward. "Karen, this is a community, not a dictatorship." Her face crumpled like someone had finally said the one thing she feared most. "No, no, I was trying to help, she whispered, voice trembling. But her meltdown wasn't over, because the officer beside me cleared his throat. Miss Avery, we're issuing you a citation for misuse of emergency services. You'll also need to appear in court. Karen gasped like she'd been stabbed. Court! Court over him? She jabbed a finger at me. He's manipulating all of you! I stepped forward, keeping my tone calm. Karen, I didn't manipulate anything. I just opened my door this morning. The officer added, and you tried to force it open. Karen spun toward the HOA board for backup, but they looked away. Mr. Hawthorne spoke with finality. You are hereby suspended from all HOA duties effective immediately. There will be a formal vote on permanent removal. Her knees buckled. You can't do this. You need me. He sighed. No, Karen. We need peace. The neighbors applauded. Karen stared at me with wide, defeated eyes, a mix of anger, fear, and humiliation twisting across her face. This isn't over, she hissed under her breath. I stepped closer, voice low but firm. It is. And next time you call 911, it better be real. She turned away, shaking, as the board escorted her down the street. No power, no clipboard, no audience. Just silence. The officer finally looked at me. Quite a first week in the neighborhood, huh? I chuckled. You have no idea. And with that, the chaos faded into the morning sunlight. The neighborhood finally calm, and Karen's reign officially over.